Every week, we get a new Associated Press Top 25 with college basketball, with the men's and women's side. And every week, we have questions why certain teams should be or shouldn't be ranked. Hello, everyone. Welcome to SlasherU. I'm your host, Christian Rao, here with my co host, Steve Feck. And we are going to discuss a few of the Associated Press, the AP Top 25 for men's and women's college basketball. And each of us are going to give a team on both the men's and women's side that is not ranked and we believe should be. Steve, this should be a really fun conversation here. And I think we do have some good thoughts here. We shared our topics, our teams before going live so we could, have an idea of what we're getting into here. And right. I agree with every single one of them that we had. Now, obviously, I agree on my two, but both of yours, I also agree as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into the women's side first. We're each going to talk about the team that we believe that should be ranked. We're not going to give reasons of who should be replacing them. We're not going to go that far into it because
we're not.
I mean, if you want to, we can go. For it. If you want to do that, I take that back. No holds barred.
See, I have that distinctive lighting feature where I have the dark side and the light side here. So okay. I thought we were going to go there, but no, I can be Professor Positive.
You know what? If you want to Jekyll and Hyde this conversation, I got no problem with it whatsoever. So you know what? I take that back. We may go ahead and do just that. But what we will do is we will discuss some of these teams that do not have a number next to them, express our concern, and maybe give a route into the way that they can get to that top 25 ranking. I'm going to start off with this one, and I'm going to start with the women's side. And I've talked about this team a few times so far this season, just recently, actually, when we talked about the UConn loss to Maryland, because on Sunday, this team plays UConn. UConn moved down to number 9 after their loss. They have 2 losses on their side. They're going to be taking on Florida State, who is 10-1 and is not ranked. And it's not like they're just outside the top 25 either, Steve. That's something that actually really concerns me. When you go and look at the other teams receiving votes, Florida State's only getting a handful. I don't think they had even 5. It's just really concerning to me of how a team that's 10-1 like Florida State can be missing out. Now, I know that some of their teams they've played have not been super skillful. However, they looked really good in the ACC Big Ten Challenge against Wisconsin. They won against Purdue in the Cancun Challenge. They won the whole Cancun Challenge, should I say, against Harvard, against Purdue. I'm sorry, they didn't win the Cancun. They lost. The only game they lost was against Oklahoma State. I take that back. However, when you look at their games, their only loss is a 2-point loss to the Pokes, just like I said. Every other game, they're doing really good things. Beating Florida 92-77, beating Houston in overtime 79-73. Getting back in the Cancun Challenge after losing on opening night and winning the next 2. This team is very impressive to me. I mean, the last game they had was against Texas Southern, and they won 108-51. Now, they have one game before they play UConn. They play Presbyterian, who has a losing record. So I understand that portion behind it, that they probably, where they're pointing at is probably their strength of schedule. But if you're this far in the season and you are in a Power 5 school, and you've already played Power 5 teams, regardless of where they are in the conference, if you are talking about a Wisconsin team who is 3-6 right now, right? Or you're talking about the Purdue team who you won, but they were 5-1 during that game. So there was a battle of unbeatens. And then Purdue goes into that game and they get their first loss after that one. I just don't understand why Florida State's not ranked. Not only do I not understand why they're not ranked, I don't understand why the Associated Press is not giving them any love whatsoever.
That completely baffles me as well. And quite honestly, I think it is the single largest oversight on either side, both either men's or women's. You can't always control the quality of your opponents. When you're scheduling them out, you're generally scheduling them out 2-3 years out. You really can't control it. I mean, again, they did, go into, not a major holiday tournament, but it was a pretty impressive tournament. They played some quality teams there. And what disappointed me is that it was both on the AP and the coaches poll side that Florida State didn't get any love in. And honestly, I wish I had an explanation for you, Christian, to make you feel maybe a little better about your outrage. But you need to get angrier about this. I mean, Florida State is legit. Okay. And I think that I'm sure that there are teams in the ACC that are a lot more nervous now about this Seminoles side than they were in the preseason. So I just don't understand it. I can't point to anything saying this is why, unless you want to go strength of schedule. But you can go up and down the top 25 and look at strength of schedule. And Villanova is what 25. Their strength of schedule is not much better than Florida State's.
Right. And they received 56 votes. That's the threshold right here in the women's side for top 25. Villanova is in the 25 spot, and they did receive 56 votes. Florida State received 3. That disparity is just too much. Now, if it was a different conversation here where Florida State might have received 50 and they're just outside top 25, okay, I could maybe understand the argument about strength of schedule. But if you're telling me that your only loss is to a 2-point loss in one of the invitationals at the beginning of the season, and you have done everything right with the exception of the last few minutes of one game, and you're only receiving 3 votes at the end of December for the top 25, there's a problem there. So a lot of things that need to get looked into. And you're right, it's not just the Associated Press top 25, it's the coaches poll as well. Really something you need to get into. All right, so there's my rant about Florida State. I feel like it's very justified. Sounds like you agree with that one too.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Who is your women's team that is not in the top 25 that deserves to be there?
Well, I'm going to tie in my thing with my comment about Villanova. Not that Villanova is a bad basketball team, but St. John's is 10-0. St. John's women lead the Big East. Why are they not ranked ahead of Villanova? Why are they not ranked ahead of several teams, it ranked maybe between 20 and 25? I mean, I don't get it. They have quality wins against Creighton, Butler, Memphis, and Temple. Okay, are they all powerhouse teams? No, they're not. And again, St. John's played some cupcakey kind of teams, but they played a lot of traditional New York metropolitan rivals, within their pre-conference schedule. So what are you supposed to do? Say, you can't have local rivalries anymore. You just have to schedule if you want us to consider you in the top 25. I just don't get it. I mean, St. John's is absolutely driven by their backcourt. Actually, 4 of their players that have the most minutes are all guards. So guard play, guard play, guard play. So that's obviously right away plays into my heart. Mm-hmm. But it's not unique to women's college basketball to have 4 guards on the floor, even though one might be a swing. I mean, it's not unusual to have that. I just drew a blank. Oh, Jayla Everett leads the team with 15.6 points a game, 31 minutes. She's playing 31 minutes. Kadaya Bailey's 14.4, 33 minutes. And Mimi Reed, I mean, I think she's listed at 5'7". I think she can't be 5'4". I mean, she's just a little tiny package of dynamite. I mean, she is just terrific. I looked and she's only averaging 4 assists a game, but when you watch St. John's play, it just seems that she's always the one making that pass, so a basket happens. So, and then they have Unique Drake, who's another. I mean, she's not much taller than Mimi Reed, but she does a really, really nice job, and she's averaging 26 minutes. What I really like about it is that their coach, Joe Tordanello, I think he has his rotation set now. They've got 9 players that have played at least 9 games. Actually, 8 of them have played in 10 games, and then another one has played only 9. But so I think he's got his rotation set going into conference play, which has already begun. And this is a team that, I mean, they're hard-nosed. They stay in games. They beat teams handily that they need to beat. And their losses could have gone either way. Quite honestly, they could have gone either way. I think they should be ranked. Especially if you're going to put Villanova at 25, you can't have the best record in the Big East at this point. Again, not including conference play. You can't have the best record.
Well, how
not
can
in
you
the
have
top
a
25.
team? How can you have a
Yeah.
team like Villanova? I guess we are going down this route. How can you have a
Yeah.
team like Villanova, who is ranked 25th, lost to Creighton, and then
Yes.
Creighton's only loss is to St. John's, right?
Right.
So you have to really put that in perspective there. Again, 56 votes for the top 25. St. John's is just outside. They are technically the 26th vote, and they only have
Right.
19. So there's still a huge disparity here. So I have to question a majority of these AP voters here if they're even watching women's college basketball. I got to say it. I'm not afraid to say it because it really seems like it's shining at us right now. It's obvious that it's really easy to pick the number one team in the nation right now. That's pretty clear. But it
Yeah.
shouldn't be this big of a disparity between 25 and 26 just making this poll, especially when the disparity is between a team who beat a ranked top 25 team who is 1-0 against AP teams and another team in Villanova who I believe is 1-2 against ranked opponents. So that's something that really needs to be settled out and looked at a little closer. I agree with you, Steve.
Yeah, well, I think it is more they're watching the same teams week in, week out, and they're not looking at the teams that are not already in the top 25.
Yeah, pay attention. This we
Yeah.
keep talking about it. We keep talking about it. This women's conference, this whole league is going to be so deep this year. It's not only going to be a great double NCAA tournament in March, it's going to be a great WNIT as well.
NIT
So
tournament, yes.
I mean, we really got to pay attention to if you're a big fan of women's college basketball, you got to pay attention to all the teams, all the conferences, because it is really something this year, and not just the top teams in the Big East, not just the top teams in the SEC. I mean, you got to go deep with these conferences this year. You really do. Get your reading in. Check out The Athletic. Check out SlasherU. If our shows we cover all of these teams, giving you content every single day. So definitely give that a check out. All right, I'm with you. I think both of those should be ranked, and I think we could find a valid spot for that. I think when the new rankings come out, obviously, if Florida State can get a win against UConn, that will be huge. That would definitely just take over what what needs to be done. As for St. John's, I mean, if they continue to be undefeated, how can you not keep them out of the conversation? They play 8-4 Providence this week before the rankings come out. So, I mean, you take down another winning record team. That's a Big East opponent. That's huge as well. So I would not be surprised if both those teams come out with a win and moving into the poll on Monday morning, that both those teams finally make it to the top 25. They better. St. John's, I can see a lot more closer than Florida State because of how far away they are. But if Florida State gets a win against UConn, people are paying attention to that one. Just like you said, with that only paying attention to the same teams over and over again. Well, UConn's one of those. So if Florida State gets a look at and they look pretty good, even if it's against a banged up UConn team, they deserve votes to get in that top 25, Steve.
Yeah, and what's sad? Even if they play UConn close, then the voters are going to say, "Well, see, they're not worthy of a top 25 ranking." Well, no, okay. If you're within 5-6 points of this UConn team, you obviously are better than you think we are, but they're just not going to look at that. It's very simplistic. The coaches poll on the women's side disappoints me more than with the men's. I mean, with the men's side, they'll never admit it, but it's really their sports information directors or an assistant coach that votes. It's not really the head coach necessarily. But on the women's side, I think that among the coaching fraternity, there is a lot more communication. There's a lot more, dare I say, admiration, for their opponents, especially schools that are not in the Power 5 conferences. Dawn Staley has made it a point of playing teams because she remembered what it was like when she was at a G5 school, having big schools come in. A lot of coaches, Oriema does that also he does a great job of scheduling teams that are maybe are on the up and up, or that are really trying to build the program, not as a favor to a friend, but but he remembers what it was like to have to build this program up to the level that it has been. So, I really hope Florida State plays UConn close. I'm not as confident as you that they're going to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're going to give UConn a run for the money. I mean, it's not going to be. It's going to be under double digits, And it wouldn't surprise me if it goes down to the last 2 minutes of the game before it gets decided.
All right, let's head over to the men's side. I went first. Let's hand it over to you now. We saw some movement for sure in the new top 25 here for the men's side. For example, we have a new number 1 team, the Boilermakers. The Purdue sits at number 1, UVA at 2. We saw Houston move all the way down to 5 after their loss to Bama, and they jumped Bama to 4. I thought that was very impressive. So pretty cool things in the top 25 there. However, we're talking about teams that didn't make the top 25. Who is your team that was left out that deserves to be there, Steve?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Purdue now that they're the number 1 team in the country, because my team in the 3rd game of their season lost to Purdue only by 5 points, and that's Marquette. Shaka Smart may be the most aptly named college basketball coach out there. This guy is smart. He sees more than just X's and O's and how to beat a zone or whatever it would be. He knows that a team has to be cohesive. And when he took over, that was one of the first things he said. I mean, he knew, I think 6 or 7 guys followed Wojciechowski, out when Smart took over at Marquette in 2021. And Marquette did really well early. But, they kind of faded down the thing. It's not going to happen to this Marquette team. It's just not going to happen. And the total team effort that Marquette puts out every single night was evident for a national TV audience when they beat Notre Dame.
Oh, and when they beat Baylor too. Don't forget about that game.
Right. Baylor was ranked number 6. When Marquette beat Baylor, and that's not the only wins that they've had.
They won big against Baylor too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They and then Georgia Tech. Okay, it's an ACC team, but they beat them pretty handily. And the losses they did have, we talked about Purdue. They lost to an undefeated Mississippi State team by 3, and a rising Wisconsin team they lost only by 3. And quite honestly, it's one of the few games this year that they allowed to slip away. Wisconsin was really on fire, but I think Marquette had a good chance to win that game at points, but they just let it slip away. They have depth. They have a bunch of players averaging at or close to 30 minutes a game. Iguodaro is just an amazing inside presence. Not only is he rebounding, especially on the offensive board. He's doing a great job on the offensive boards, but, and he's blocking shots, which you would expect, a big guy to do, but he's distributing the ball. He's second in the team in assists. He's getting the ball back out into the perimeter for threes or to keep the defense honest. He's doing a great job with steals and forcing turnovers. This is a Marquette team that even I, and I'm not sure where you ranked them. I forgot where you had Marquette when we did our Big East preview, but I don't think
they were in the middle. They weren't very
high. Right. Yeah. So again, and it's not a knock against Marquette. I think it was more unfamiliarity with the people that they brought into the program. But having watched Marquette a bunch of times, this is another. We talk a lot about the Big Ten and wow, I can't believe this team is this good, and how the Big Ten is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Big East is going to be a lot of fun.
I think we have a lot of conferences this year that we didn't expect to be so close, or maybe thought was going to be super top heavy, and then it becomes way more deeper than we thought. Big Ten's one of them. Pac-12 is one of them, which I'm going to get into in just a second here. Big East, and obviously Mountain West is one that's really just shocking the world right now. A conference that we thought was going to be good that's really just starting to suck right now is the Atlantic 10. So, there's a lot of things that are going on in college basketball. I will say that I'm glad we did all the conference predictions at the beginning of the season. I will completely look at that so much differently next season. When we do those, I will have a completely different eye. So I'm glad we did it. There's definitely some mistakes we made. So I'm looking forward to learning from them moving forward. The team that I'm picking here, and I can see this one being a little bit of controversy. Now, before we get to it, we are recording this before their 9:00 tip-off against Creighton tonight. So this might mean nothing. I doubt it. but might need nothing. I'm taking Arizona State. They are 9-1 currently. They have won their first 2 games in the Pac-12. Colorado was one of them, who both of you and I think is a sleeper in the Pac-12. And they do play Creighton at 9 o'clock tonight, so we'll see how that goes. We will recap that game later on SlasherU, so that's something we can discuss. Creighton's a good basketball team. They have kind of struggled lately, so we'll see if they can really capitalize against the Blue Jays. The reason I like Arizona State in this one is, one, they're 9-1. They beat Stanford. They beat Colorado. They're already shining so far in the Pac-12. Their only loss is by 1 point in overtime to Texas Southern. Now, tough loss. It's one of those Pac-12 SWAC legacy series, so those games are always pretty high-tempered, high energy. But every other game they've played, they have looked very good. And the one that I really stick out to, and kind of in the same aspect as Marquette to Baylor, how that was a really big win for them, Arizona State put a beating on then once ranked 20th Michigan, 87-62. I mean, they beat them by 25 points in the Legends Classic, and it was just amazing watching this team. Horn, the guard, is fantastic. Bagley, Collins, all three of those average over 12 points per game. And that's something that you really just love seeing. They have a lot of movement between the ball. They're not afraid to be versatile and to move it around, and they are not one-minded. They have good guard play, and just like we know, Steve, we like guard play on this channel here. They have 2 guards that average over 3 assists per game. Collins averages over 5 assists per game. That's huge moving into what we're going into in the tougher Pac-12 games. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be as good as their in-state rivalry, Arizona. I'm not saying that's the case. We talked about Arizona on one of the segments just a few days ago on Slasher, and we know that we think Arizona is for real. Both of us had Arizona as our Pac-12, champion, and I don't think that my mind has changed whatsoever. However, I did not have Arizona State really anywhere towards the top of that Pac-12. They were not my sleeper pick like I thought Colorado was going to be. But I could see them totally becoming that sleeper in said tournament moving forward, with UCLA, with USC not doing as good as we once hoped, with Oregon really just crapping the bed for the majority so far this season. Arizona's kind of sitting on top. Arizona can sneak in there and make some noise in the tournament. Not saying they might win the entire thing for the Pac-12 tournament, but they could find a way to get a bid. And I think they really can moving forward. I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to play against those tougher opponents in the Pac-12. Now, obviously, the game against Creighton tonight will be an interesting matchup in itself, but New Year's Eve, we get to see Arizona take on Arizona State. And both those teams better be ranked by that time around. Now, Arizona has no problem with that, but Arizona State, actually, Marquette and Arizona State, we both picked these teams, both received 39 votes in the top 25. So that's interesting. We both picked those. So they're both sitting around about the 30th mark in the AP voting. Now, you have they're both tied for 28th, if you will. Memphis and Charleston sitting above them. There are definitely some teams when you look at this top 25 that deserve to hit the road, if you will. And I'm telling you what, if we find a team like Arizona State or Marquette by Monday hit that top 25, I think I would look at this light a whole different world about these writers, because I know they're not watching us, unfortunately, because I think your ballot would look a lot better. However, maybe they're paying attention to some of these other games they should be. And, Marquette is one of those games. Now, I think that we get a lot of people paying attention to Big East basketball based on location, which is great. However, Arizona State, I think, really gets shadowed by some of their top competitors in the Pac-12. And I think some of the middle to lower end teams that don't get that media presence get a lot of, which is crazy for Arizona State because of the amount of sports broadcasters coming out of Arizona State, right? So the Kroenke School of Journalism, and we talked about this with football too. It's wild that the media presence for Arizona State is not as big as it should be. It is really wild to me. However, Arizona State is my pick. I'm looking forward to seeing if we can get these guys in there. I'm looking forward to covering that game tomorrow, and maybe I'll have a different viewpoint on how I feel about Arizona State after watching them play Creighton, who's a tough team, regardless of their record, is a very tough team.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And then the nice you referred to earlier about us ranking every conference. And now, oh, yeah, okay, well, we made mistakes. We have to go
Oh yeah.
back. Okay, it's natural to make mistakes. It's also fun to see teams emerge that you had no even inkling that might happen.
Oh, certainly.
Arizona State, it was a great pick here by you because they're always teasing college hoop fans. They always have a really solid base to their roster, but for some reason, it just doesn't seem to gel. They just, if one night they're having a great offensive night, their defense is brutal, or vice versa, or they're not rebounding well, or they're turning the ball over. I think maybe this Arizona State team is gelling before our eyes, and they're starting to iron out some of those wrinkles in their game over the last couple of years. And maybe now they're kind of asserting themselves, saying, "Look, pay attention to us. We are for real. We're not just University of Arizona's baby brother. Okay, we are a team to be reckoned with in our own." Way. And again, for me, as much as the Creighton game is going to be fun, I can't wait for that New Year's Eve game.
Yeah, there are so many good games on New Year's Eve. I mean, don't have any other plans for your bringing in the new year because you're going to be glued to your couch watching college basketball. I mean,
right. Get drunk on college hoops. You don't need to be out there with all those amateurs, lunatics out there. Just stay home on your couch. You can have the beer tastes the same on your couch as it does in a bar or out in a crowd of lunatics. So just stay home and watch basketball.
It's nicer in your checkbook too. Keep that one in mind. Let us know your thoughts. Yeah, let us know your thoughts about. Do you believe that these teams should be in the top 25? Did we miss a team? Is there a team missing from the top 25 that you think deserves to be there? Let us know in the comments below. And thank you for listening to SlasherU.